Slam Sector contains levels of brain rot that may be harmful or traumatizing to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Oh! I hit the wrong button. Oh well. Yeah!
We're actually live, right?
We're
live this time?
It says end stream instead of go live, so I assume we're actually live.
Okay.
But it says waiting for Slam Sector, so...
Yeah, I don't see it.
Okay.
Hello? Chat. It's playing the countdown. So, we're scuffed. Welcome to Slam Sector, baby. Yeah. That's a great way to start this. But
they're going to see a little bit of how the hot dog's made, I guess, but that's all right.
Yeah, the hot dog is made with a lot of scuff. So, today, we're going to be talking about 2 new codexes. Not just one, but 2 new codexes. And we are going to be splitting them up into 2 different streams. So we're doing the Death Guard stream now, and then, assuming this one doesn't go hella long, we'll be doing the World Eaters Codex review in an hour and a half. So, before we jump in, I would like to urge you guys to like, sub, share this stream, join the Discord, hop in the Discord, tell us your opinions on these codexes. If you want to toss a few bucks our way, joining as a channel member or joining the Patreon would be a huge support to the channel. And you get a bunch of cool perks, like being able to vote for matchups, and we'll commit vandalism in your honor. I'll tell you what that means if it comes up. But we're going to be rating all of these detachments on the Slam scale. So, in case you're curious about what the Slam scale is, we're going to be rating 4 categories from 1 to 10, and we're going to be taking the average of those, and that will be the Slam score of that detachment. S, sex appeal. Basically, how flashy or fun is the detachment? How much does it stand out from the rest of the detachments in the game? L is lore. How well the detachment meshes with the lore of the faction. It doesn't feel forced. It feels kind of unique or adds to the lore in an interesting way. A is approachability. How approachable do you feel the detachment is from a rules perspective and also a hobby perspective? If you're going to have to paint a whole bunch of weird niche models, it's going to get a lower score. And then M is meta. How competitive will that detachment be in our somewhat, mostly uneducated, very casual player opinions? So yeah, that is the Slam scale, and we're going to be going in, I think, the order that they are in the Codex, but I'm not 100% positive, so we'll find out. So, we're not going to talk about Flyblown Host, because we talked about that already on a previous Slam scale, but I know it's kind of got some new life breathed into it with the new Codex and how the army rule and stuff changed. So, do you guys have any opinions on that before we dig into the actual book detachments?
I only looked at book detachments for this.
Yeah. That's fine.
I missed the part of the assignment where I was supposed to look at everything. Assuming that was part of the assignment.
It was not.
I'm really I'm feeling good about Flyblown Host now. Pretty much everything that interacted with the stuff that Flyblown Host likes has grown. I think the obvious take with that one is going to be Poxwalker Jail at the start, and then you bring in some backup stuff. But that's more of gameplay stuff. As far as approachability goes, I feel like it's infantry focused, although it's really hard to go with the incorrect infantry in it. Pretty much you do any of the Death Guard infantry in Flyblown Host and you're going to be doing well. So I think it's very approachable. If I had to rate it, I'd probably say let's do a 7. Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah. As far as lore goes, I feel like it leans into a lot of the old rules that they've had in the past that would give things stealth or lone op or something like that, Cloud of Flies and stuff like that was basically their old school smoke in a lot of different ways. It's pretty sexy in my opinion too.
Ooh,
because
pretty sexy.
So yeah, it kind of like turns off for at least the beginning intro gambit of the game the downside of Death Guard, which is movement, being movement locked. Being able to turn that off for like one of the 6 like movement phases of the game, I'm including deployment in that, is pretty massive. So yeah, it's a really good detachment. I think it's going to be one of the more brokish ones. Like it's going to do some busted shit. It's probably going to have to get its hand slapped on Poxwalkers having stealth. But I'm big on it, man.
I think I would put it probably top 3 detachments in the book.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it seems really cool to me. It seems very good. Yeah, with that said, all that out of the way, let's talk about our first Codex detachment, which is going to be the Virulent Vectorium.
Yes, sir.
So let me pull up the totally legal codex that I have over here. So this one is the sticky objectives one, right? Got it. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll start. We'll all 4 of us just like, or all 3 of us go down our S, and then we'll go down our L. You know, do it like that. So as far as sex appeal, I am kind of just in the middle of the road on this one. I'm giving it a 5 on sex appeal there. Its biggest rule is like the sticky objectives, which is like cool. It's not very sexy, but I'm gonna give it a bonus point. I had this at a 4 originally, and I gave it a bonus point because it has a auto explode strat. So, so that's an automatic 1 point increase for me.
All day, man.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on sex appeal for this?
Yeah, as far as sex appeal, it's like kind of like the pretty standard Death Guard army to me. It's like there's nothing that really stands out. I do also like a forced detonation. I maybe put it a little too low. This is like the first thing I was rating. I had it at a 3 originally because it was like,
The slam scale's not a perfect science.
I'm gonna bump it up to 4. I'm gonna give it that bonus explosion point. Yeah,
hell yeah,
bump it up to 4.
How you feeling,
Fascinating. Matt? So the detachment rule is this is basically like a reskinning of the index detachment.
Yeah,
and the fact that it kept the detachment rule like that is like it's fine. It's okay. Death Guard are skewing more elite now, so having 6 objectives is fine. So in my head, I rate that as a 5, and the enhancements kind of bring that up for me because these enhancements, like you see them and you're like, oh shit, really? So I'm actually starting at a 5 and going up to a 6.
Oh,
on
okay.
Virulent Vectorium. Yeah.
And it's worth noting too that we all kind of have our biases, right? Ryan and I don't play Death Guard. We're not Death Guard biased. I would definitely count myself as World Eaters biased, and that will probably show in when we do the World Eaters review. Yeah. So that's what we got in sex appeal. I will agree. I think that like the enhancements are probably the most interesting part of this detachment. But yeah, otherwise it's kind of just very generalist. But I don't think that's a problem. It's just kind of middle of the road for me. Next is lore. I gave this one a 7 on lore. Praise Nurgle. I think it pretty well fits the narrative of kind of just Death Guard being this like unkillable force, just like trotting up the board and decaying everything in their path. So I think it's a bit above average, I think. How do you feel, Ryan?
Yeah, they're just out there spreading the sick. So I gave it a 7 as well.
Let's go.
Praise Nurgle.
Come on, Matt. You know what you have to do.
There's nothing about it that is like inherently like gets that like lore,
right?
I don't know, dose. So I didn't give it a higher score than that.
It's not like specific enough.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
So okay. I am very hyped on lore, specifically because a lot of these terms and some of the in-game effects are callbacks to things that were in the 8th edition book when it first came out.
Like in the lore section or in the rules?
In the lore section. So Leechspore Casket used to be an artifact that you could give something, and it kind of had a similar effect, but it was an artifact that was stapled to a dude that you could give a guy in 8th edition. Disgustingly Resilient was
the Leechspore Eruption stratagem?
Yeah, Leech Spore Eruption. The fact that it's no longer a casket that does it. Like, there's a little blurb about the Leech Spore casket in the 8th edition book. I think there's a short story about it too, but it was basically like this fucking Pandora's box thing, which I have
This is a stratagem
drawn inspiration.
that heals, it looks like, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
It causes damage, doesn't it?
Yeah, and your model regains wounds when that happens too. By the way, this stratagem is really good for a land raider that you can't quite kill, but we'll talk about that when we get to the M of meta. So Leech Spore Eruption, Disgustingly Resilient, Creeping Blight, Putrid Detonation, Arch Contaminator, all of these are from previous books, and I like that they're doing that because you don't really see that in too many codexes, like stuff surviving and making.
It seems like kind of a
stuff.
recent thing that they're doing with some of the newer codexes.
Oh yeah. So I'm really big on this, and it like as I'm reading it, it's like, oh my god, am I opening the right book? This feels like I'm opening up like an 8th edition codex. I love it, absolutely love it. So I'm giving it a 7 because of that.
Let's go! Woo! We did it. Raise an Urgle. We can end the stream now. We're done.
Clutch.
Approachability. I'm giving this one a fat 8 on approachability. This is like kind of your generalist detachment. It's very got a very diverse toolbox, but also the rules are pretty easy to learn. Sticky objectives is like not complicated. All the stratagems are pretty like relatively straightforward. All of your enhancements, like what they do, is pretty straightforward. Like you're critting on 5s, or like you're rerolling wounds. Pretty straightforward stuff, easy to learn. I think if you're going to like start playing Death Guard, this is probably like the detachment to learn the army with. So I hit it with a fat 8.
Yeah, I gave it a big old 10.
Oh my god!
Because it's like your bog standard detachment.
Yeah.
Emphasis on bog.
Nice.
If I remember right, most of its stratagems, or several of its stratagems, are just Death Guard. There's not like a lot of specificity. So, and like sticky objectives is a very noob friendly ability, especially if your whole army has it.
Yeah.
It makes it like, because it's really easy for a new player to like get lost in the sauce and forget about staying on objectives. So having the sticky objectives, you can buy pretty much whatever you want. Any boxes you buy for Death Guard, they'll function in this just fine. So give it a big fat 10.
I just want you to know that I wrote the phrase "sticky objectives makes it easier to recover when you get lost in the sauce." So
that's that one brain cell working.
That's it, baby.
All right, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, so the way that I evaluated this was I looked at how the combat patrol plays into it, because that's a product that's going to be pretty evergreen for a while, and if you bought 2 of them, how like A is 1 a good value? Yes, 1 is an amazing value for I think every single one of these attachments. 2 is a pretty good value for Virulent Vectorium. I think having double Tallyband doesn't really do much for you, and I think you can probably leave the second one at home. Don't buy 3 of these boxes.
Or Kit Bash the Tallyband into something else.
Yeah, you can certainly turn him into. He would be actually a really good apothecary or a plague surgeon. Actually, his sculpt would benefit really well from that. But 2 Demon Princes go really well on this, and so I'm giving this. I don't have a reason to not give it a 10. I wrote down 9, but like there's nothing like this is kind of the gold standard.
My thinking in not giving it like a perfect 10 is that like it's still like a chaos army that has like a lot of trim and shit to paint. And it's got like a lot of like gribbly grossness that's like not the easiest to hobby, but it's still like pretty forgiving in that if you mess it up, it's like it is what it is. It's gross. It's Death Guard. So
yeah, that's a good point.
That's
I will say Death Guard paints easy for newer players because you can just be like, oh, that smudge? Yeah, that's his combat lunch.
I definitely think it's higher up there on like easiest to paint armies, but
oh, for sure, absolutely. There's not too many of them either because they are so elite now. Is kind of how it's going. I'm gonna put this one at 9. It's still a shitload of brass trim, so it's got the curse of chaos where you're stuck with trim. But yeah, it's oh my god, look at Virulent Vectorium. I'm just rocking a natty 7 right now.
For now, let's see if we can hold on to it. All right, getting into meta. Again, we're not the most competitive players in the world, but we've played a bunch of games, so we can speak to this at least a little bit. At first glance, I think that this is going to be like a pretty strong contender. I think this is like another one of those detachments that's probably in the top 3. I think this is, I don't know. I don't think this is the best detachment in the game or in the book. But I think you'll probably see this taking some GTs. So I hit it at a classic 7.
Nice.
Yeah, I gave it a big ol' 8 because board presence, from everything I've seen, is huge, and with Death Guard, especially with their sort of slow movement, the sticky objectives are going to be a big deal. Being able to just like push up and put the pressure on the enemy and not have to worry about your backline as much, aside from like deep strikes, which you can deal with those on a case-by-case basis on your games. But being able to just hold down the objectives without having your guys there, especially since they're so elite, I think that's like a big advantage for how this army is going, with their like potentially fewer units that are tougher and stronger. You can just put the pressure on the enemy, keep the points capped. So I thought it'd be pretty competitive.
Yeah, makes sense. How you feel, Matt?
Yeah, so this one I think is probably the strongest attachment in the book, and it's probably I honestly think this is the best.
Okay.
Once you give a foot, what's up?
I was gonna say it's my highest meta score. I just noticed.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think relative to the other detachments, this one is probably going to be the one that flexes hardest, unless the skew stuff is busted, in which case it's going to get nerfed. But this one kind of embraces a lot of stuff. Between the Demon Prince getting Revolting Regeneration and being about as tough as Mortarion on like a per point, like points investment versus how much they can soak bases. You basically have a mini Mortarion running around.
Talking about a glow up, Mortarion looks good now, dude.
Dude, I think you auto take Mortarion in this, you auto take a Demon Prince in this, and then you pretty much want to get some vehicles going. Like anything with a bunch of wounds, like a Land Raider, I think is great in this. The Defiler is really good in here. I can't believe I'm saying that sentence in 2025.
The Defiler? The Defiler.
Dude, Defilers are looking pretty nice.
They're bonkers. This is absolutely a 9, in my opinion.
Absolutely a 9. All right. Well, we lost the 7.0, but it's coming out.
We got a 7.3.
It's coming out with a pretty strong 7.3, which Nurgle also does not hate. So. All right. So next up, we got Mortarion's Hammer. But before, let's talk about some stuff we got going on in chat. Loving the new Slam scale. Thank you. Yeah. I think I like this format a lot. This is a good way for us to review codexes, even though we're not super competitive players. So, having a good time with it. Hello, Kerfuffles. Stabby McStabwood, great name. Haven't played since 3rd edition. How hard is it going to be for me to get into 10th edition? Been printing and painting a Blood Angels army. Just ordered my books. Well, you are our local Blood Angels player, Matt. So, how about you feel that one?
Listen, man, you've chosen a great time to get into it. Definitely, if Blood Angels speak to you, you've got a lot of stuff that you can lean into. Check out some of the books while you're painting and printing. Listen to their lore and their narrative, because their special, unique stuff feeds from their lore and kind of grows out from there. I'm really, really into the detachments Blood Angels has. Definitely look at Liberator Assault Group to like learn as the first one. I feel like that one's the most Blood Angels-y, and that one's also the most forgiving as far as like, helping you get in on the charge better. Like basically the stuff that you want to be focusing on as a new player is going to be rewarded by Liberator Assault Group detachment. And if you build a good Liberator Assault Group detachment, you can flex into a good Angelic Host detachment, which is very fun, not as competitive, but very fluffy. The Librarius detachment is really fun too, and Blood Angels love them some Librarians. So, all respect to Mephiston, which, by the way, pick up a Mephiston or print up a Mephiston.
And just kind of generally, I think Space Marines are one of the easiest armies to get into in the game, regardless of what chapter it is. Just because there's like an abundance of models, there's an abundance of resources as far as like how to play Space Marines and stuff. And they play like a pretty straightforward play style for the most part.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And shout out
learning
to a
Space Marines.
third edition Old Beardy.
Yeah, boy.
All right.
Water's fine.
Moving on to Mortarion's Hammer. This is our more vehicle-focused detachment. So it's going to be what your Land Raiders, your Plague Burst Crawlers. Basically, all your vehicles are going to like this, right? None of them really. Maybe Rhinos are like not the best, but all your tanks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just briefly, our detachment rule here is you are picking in a standard 2,000 point game. You're picking 2 units from the enemy army on the battlefield, and those units are just afflicted, so they get the -1 toughness and they get the whatever plague you pick at the start of the game. And they have to be
Start
more
of
than
the
12
battle
inches
round.
away. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know what I
battle
said. Did I say start of the game? That's not what I meant.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds
Start of the
good.
battle round. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty strong detachment rule there. I went ahead and I put this one at a 7 for sex appeal. I think the detachment rule is really cool. I think a lot of the stratagems are really cool. You have some of the ones that are just like standard vehicle detachment stuff, like bursting through walls. But you have some pretty good ones, like the -2 to charges, like incoming charges, which is pretty good. That feels like very Death Guardy. But yeah, that's what I got. What do you got, Ryan?
Yeah, so I like this attachment because, as you guys might know, I like tanks. So I give it a big fat 8.
8.
I like some of the tank rules they have, especially how it plays off of the affliction, and this gives you a nice way to get like some good turn 1 shooting. Really any turn. And when I first read the army rule or the detachment rule, I thought it was kind of like rad bombardment, where it was just the first round, and I was like, eh.
It's
But
more
every
like
round,
the guard, the new guard, like Krieg detachment.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I haven't looked at that. So, but yeah, it's I like it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one too. As far as sex appeal goes, I think that this is going to appeal to people who are like, wait, what do their tanks look like? And what are those, little cursed Myphitic Blight haulers running around? I think this, if you like tanks, this one's gonna slot in pretty hard to being what you want to build towards. So yeah, this one's an 8 for me as well as far as sex appeal goes. I think one of the first independent kits that you buy as a Death Guard player is like, that tank looks psycho. I need to own at least 2 of those.
Death Guard have some of the coolest tanks in the game, I think.
I'm a
Yeah,
big
they
fan,
do.
man. I really like how this detachment is like. It's kind of like, hey, you know how we have to like get up close to the person to make our rule effect happen? Well, you don't have to worry about getting close for 2 of them. So just pick the 2 you hate the least or the most, and it's almost like an oath. You basically get 2 pseudo oaths on this.
Yeah,
In
it
a
like
way.
moves them into more of like a shooting army than like a melee
Yeah.
army, which is what you need for the tank detachment.
Yeah,
Which is where
absolutely.
I feel like the guard one, the Hammer of the Emperor, did not do well. But
Yeah.
apparently that shit's cleaning up tournaments, so what the fuck do I know?
Advance and shoot on tanks is apparently fucking wild. So
Cool, I guess. So moving on to lore. I give this one a 6. I think it's maybe just a little bit too similar to other kind of like vehicle-centric detachments. It doesn't really stand out much from like this is definitely a Death Guard detachment kind of way. But I do think that there's a few like little standout things. Some of the enhancements are cool. They're a little weird in the fact that they're kind of the only support you're getting out of your infantry, but that's a talk for meta. So yeah, that's where I'm sitting on lore. What do you think, Ryan?
I also gave it a 6. Because I used to be kind of into Death Guard. I actually have a little bit of Death Guard. Or Plague Marines, and the thing that drew me to them was like all the lore I used to read and all the codexes. They had a huge emphasis on like just mainline infantry, just grunts out there sludging through the mud with their knives and their bolters, just doing the dirty work. And that's kind of like that was their hallmark in the lore. So tank attachments, obviously possible, but it's not like super fluffy for them in my mind. As much as I love it, and I love artillery. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I got.
that's fair. For me, I read this and like I'm already wired for like the old codexes because the 8th edition codex was how I fell in love with Death Guard. And I want to say the second company, because the original Death Guard codex, it had 7 detachment for the 7 like kind of like warbandish company, the great companies of the what the Chaos Legion had become essentially. And I want to say the second one is Mortarion's hammer. And it was just like, oh man, they came back to the second company, huh? And that one was very vehicle focused, and there's a way to kind of like press a Chaos Tech Marine into service with that one, and that kind of happens again with Tendrilless Emissions. But this is,
I was going to talk about that.
It's pretty good. You almost get a warp smith. You kind of turn a Lord of Virulence into a warp smith, which kind of makes sense because he does care about like the siege engines and everything. But if you read previous stuff on the Lord of Virulence, he cares about the output of them, not necessarily being good to them.
They're like strict performance.
Yeah. Another thing that I really liked about this is it does kind of want you to push towards demon engines. And so something that I always loved about demon engines with the Death Guard was that Mortarion valued his infantry to the point to where he found out like that demon engines could be done instead of putting his Marines in the vehicles to operate them. And he was like, I'm not going to waste a man on a vehicle that I plan on running into the battlefield to die. So I'm going to have as many demon engines as possible. He valued his men over his equipment. And I always liked that a whole lot. So every time I see demon engine folks, I'm like, fuck yeah, Mortarion. In a weird way, you kind of care about your boys. I like it. So yeah, this one is high up on me. Long story short, a 7. If I give it a 7.5, I would. It's closer to an 8 than a 6, but it's still a 7.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Approachability. I gave it a 7. It's a pretty low model count. A lot of the vehicles, for the most part, for Death Guard are pretty easy to paint. Especially because you can just kind of like grunge and grime them up, and that's how you want them to be. From a rules perspective, seems pretty straightforward. Most of the complexity is going to come from your datasheet abilities and not necessarily the detachment abilities. Being able to just pick 2 guys and be like, and my army rule is on them now, is very easy to remember. And yeah, so hit it at a 7 there. What do you think, Ryan?
I give it a 6. I give it a 6 because someone who's like starting out, they're probably going to wind up buying a lot of infantry, not necessarily going to go straight for the vehicles. And so they might have to like buy some more stuff that they weren't expecting to if they want to really run this detachment the way it needs to be run. Also, like, it can be tricky with a vehicle heavy army sometimes, especially now with like how movement works and like getting them into the right position, getting your firing lines, not letting them get bogged down in like engagement and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little less straightforward than like heavy infantry pushing the front line. Obviously, you probably have some of that in there, but you're gonna have to really like avoid traffic jams if you have a bunch of tanks. So give it a 6.
Cool. Matt.
All right, I'm actually pretty high up on approachability. My whole kind of like mantra with my approachability score is like, how does the combat patrol fit into the list? Rhinos are still okay in this detachment. You can still benefit from a few different things. You definitely still want Plague Marines in there. The Death Shroud Terminators, because they can deep strike in 6 away from... They basically combo into the detachment rule, right? You pick something that's 12 inches away and you shoot the shit out of it. And then in your chart, in your you mark it, you deep strike in 6 away from it being marked. And so that thing that was kind of unchargeable is now very easily chargeable. And so that affliction, like Wombo combo, is basically what you want to be doing with Death Shroud. It basically like allies its own oop as far as the combo goes. I'm really big on that, and those are in the Death Guard Combat Patrol. So that's one of the like infantry combos that I see happening there. So I bumped it up pretty high on the score. Vehicles are also, like, once you get past the intimidation factor, I feel like they're very fun to paint. As a new player, like, one of the things that I really enjoyed was, like, I went from being scared of painting my Great Unclean One to wishing I had more to paint of him. And there's a lot to paint on a Great Unclean One because of how big they are. That was like my first big model that I ever painted. So this, I feel like, is a very fun detachment to approach as a new player. So I'm giving this one a 7.
7.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. From a meta perspective, I gave this one a 6. I think it's probably just above, like, kind of middle of the pack. A lot of skew lists, which this is definitely going to be, are like just kind of hard countered by just certain matchups. And there's not really a ton of tools to help anything that's not a vehicle. So anything that's going to counter your vehicles is just kind of shut down your whole game plan. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah. So I gave this a 7.
Okay.
For its meta. Vehicles can be very powerful, especially if you like get some combos going. Like if you get a Lord of Virulence with Tendrilless emissions next to like a Blight Crawler, and then like throw a Predator Annihilator into the mix with Font of Filth, which I forgot what that does, but I made a note about it. I have it pulled up. Let's see. Font of
Filth gives him assault.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, gives them assault, so you can like advance them and shoot with them. And
which is
like
apparently really good. What do I know?
Yeah. I mean, that's my theory on why there's not tanks in Emperor's Children, but that's a whole other conversation with easy fixes that they could have done. Anyway, things like that plus Relentless Grind. If you get your combos off right, you have the Virulence guy. I forgot exactly what he does.
Relentless Grind is the Kool-Aid Man strat.
Mm-hmm.
Relentless Grind is Kool-Aid Man.
Mm-hmm.
And you combine that with something like Font of Filth, all of a sudden a very important model that your enemy has set up that they think is safe has got like a Predator Annihilator blasting it down out of nowhere. It could have some very good explosive potential to like just have devastating turns against your opponent. And take out some of their high value targets. But I didn't want to give it more than a 7 because there is like a finesse to that. And like I said earlier, like you got to be careful with your vehicles. But Matt did bring up a good point. There's like other things that it chains with, like Blight Lord Terminators with that. You can get some sick backline drops with them that they might not be ready for. Death Shroud, yeah. Sorry. Yep.
Well, hey Matt,
I'm not fully versed on the Death Guard names, right. So you'll have to forgive me.
As a World Eaters player, I'm glad that you and I both can just rub it in the face of the Emperor's Children player that we kept our predators.
We're going to do this with an EC book. With the EC book. That's funny. I think this one's actually going to be pretty strong. I think if you, it's obviously like vehicle focused, but it has some really interesting tricks. It is very CP intensive. I think you're going to maybe definitely want to bring a Tallyband because Blighted Land I think is a sleeper stratagem. Basically, what that is, so between you marking 2 outside of 12 inches items, you probably got Poxwalkers in the midfield that are going to be near stuff on turn 2, so it's your contagion range is 6. And then you add Blighted Land in there, there's a good chance that you're going to have afflicted without firing a shot, literally all of their fighting force of their army. And on top of that, you want to spam the Plague Burst Crawlers, and those suckers have indirect fire. And indirect fire has been a problem before. It might be a problem now because you're basically giving them an additional point of AP, and if a Lord of Virulence looks at them, all bets are off. So I think this one's actually going to be pretty good, and it's got all the tricks that help parking lot lists. Relentless Grind is bursting through. Font of Filth means you can still get the gun off. It's going to be pretty bonkers. And Stinking Mire, it's a niche stratagem, but it specifically hoses other armies that want to close that gap as fast as possible.
That is
by
-2 to charge rules.
yeah, hurting the charge, which specifically is going to frustrate, I think, a lot of A, Custodes, B, World Eaters, and C, Emperor's Children armies, which I think are going to be the main contenders for this book. But yeah, I think highly on this one. I'm giving it an 8.
Book hard counters World Eaters.
You think so? That's fair. Yeah, maybe.
Which maybe we'll talk about that in about an hour when we talk about the World Eaters.
Oh, true. Yeah. Oh, hey, nice meta rating. Our full rating.
A 7.3 followed by a 6.9. Let's go, boys.
You love to see it. Welcome to the sector.
We're hitting all the funny numbers. All right. Next up is Champions of Contagion. I don't know why I put an apostrophe. Probably because I'm an idiot. There we go. I fixed it. But this is gonna be your kind of like character-centric detachment. The detachment rule lets you kind of cycle through plagues, which is interesting, I guess. Yeah. So I think this one's pretty cool. It's I think not the sexiest at first glance. I think this is another one of those ones that's kind of just middle of the road. It just kind of like makes your army rule slightly better and doesn't really do much beyond that, in my opinion. It lets you take your characters and makes them better, which is kind of a point in its favor. But that's kind of how I feel about it. How do you feel, Ryan?
I gave it a 7 on sex appeal.
Oh, 7 on sex.
Because if there's something I like maybe more than tanks or just after tanks, it's like just the foot slogging guys out there in the field doing the work. And this detachment out of all of them has like, you're going to have like the most Plague Marines because it gives you the chance to get all your like characters out in the field. All those cool little dudes. I think it's fun. You have like 11 Space Marine characters, not including like demons and demon princes.
Yeah.
Some of those are Terminators, but a lot of them are like Plague Marine. And so it's like, this is the detachment to get them all out in the field, have cool guys doing cool stuff. So I like that. Yeah.
How do you feel, Matt?
All day, man. Yeah, so this one at first glance, I think a lot of people see this and they see like a 4 or a 5. And then once you start thinking about it, you're like, wait a second. Every single one of those Plague Marine attachable characters has a line in it that says it can attach to. And that, it kind of like, basically at the second glance, you're like, oh, this is the character detachment, obviously. And then you look at it again, you're like, oh, this is the hidden Rhino detachment.
Hidden Rhino detachment.
Like, this is like, if you dig a third layer deep, this is the Rhino detachment. And I fucking love it. I am all about this.
This
I think
one does have Rhino Rush built, like, written all over it, so.
Kinda, yeah. I think it's a 5 or 5 to 4 at first sniff. It's an 8 after, and so I'm gonna go ahead and settle on a 7 once you mix up all them smells.
Ooh,
praise
smells that smell smelly.
Yeah.
Nice. As far as lore goes, maybe a controversial take, putting this one at a 4. I don't love the lore of this one. I can't help but feel that like, for a detachment that wants you to run a ton of characters, it could have just been done a little bit better. It feels a little bit too generalist to me. And it kind of feels like it's forcing you to just run characters for the sake of running characters and not for any particularly good lore reasons. So I'm sitting at a pretty stinky 4. What do you think, Ryan?
I gave it a 10.
Holy shit! Oh my god!
Because, like I mentioned earlier, like back when I was reading, lore about the Death Guard in the old days, back in 3rd edition, and after.
Okay, boomer.
It's always talking about like the troops marching up the field, marching through the mud, doing the dirty work, and like having their boys with them.
This detachment appeals to Ryan's blue collar mentality.
I love that.
What's wrong with that? Huh? Tell me what's wrong with that.
They're salt of the earth.
Nothing.
They've
Nothing.
literally
Keep going.
salted the earth.
As
Yeah.
long as it's midnight blue, you know what I'm talking about? Eve Dominus
no.
Nox and things. Yeah, you know, they're in like you get to double down on plagues and stuff. They're just a bunch of boys out there in the muck getting filthy. What's more Death Guard than that?
That's very blue collar of you.
That's totally fair. When I saw this detachment, this is the one that I think I've re-glanced at the most out of all the detachments, because every time I look at it, I kind of hit it from a different light. So this one on the initial lore, I feel like the play space of this, they figured out the rules first and then they worked backwards. They knew that they had a shitload of kind of squishier characters and they needed to do that and then work backwards. And they definitely got there. But then I thought, like, this is the bonkers detachment for Crusade, because Crusade, you have a lot of your buffs lined up, then you have a lot of your buffs stacking because you've got two of those motherfuckers stapled to one unit. And so this is the Crusade detachment that allows you to use all of your goodies that you've been collecting in your goodie bag through a huge Crusade. So for that reason, I have to give it a 7.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I feel like now that like you mentioned that, I'm kind of thinking back on other codexes, and a lot of them have just like, this detachment is your Crusade detachment.
Yeah, there's a good amount of that for sure.
And I think World Eaters has one of those too, and we'll talk about it when we get there.
Ooh, gotta do that.
Approachability. 7. It's kind of generalist enough. You're gonna want to take characters which you're gonna probably have a bunch of anyway. If I'm being honest, there's gonna be games where you don't ever use the detachment rule. So you don't even have to think about it that much. And the stratagems are kind of like generalist rerolls. A lot of it, honestly, is if you look back at the Virulent Vectorium and you look at the enhancements that they had, a lot of those enhancements became stratagems in this detachment. So, pretty easy stuff. What do you think, Ryan?
I gave it a 7 as well, for a couple of reasons. Its detachment rule is like a do-over if you pick poorly. So, like, if you're new to the game, you pick the wrong plague, you can be like, "Oops, I meant to pick this other one." That's nice. It's also adaptable, so you can change it if you need. It's also everyone's going to have some plague marines. You're going to need a lot of plague marines for this. And this is also like the detachment for the guy who's like starting out. He doesn't know exactly what he's doing, but he's going through the store, doesn't have a whole lot of money. He's like, oh, wow, that Death Guard character looks really cool, and I can buy that because that by itself is $40, and I have to eat. And he buys a bunch of like little models that he thinks are cool. This is the detachment where he gets to put them all to work. So,
yeah.
And also a bunch of infantry on the field is very tough, hard to kill. I think will be easy to run. So
nice.
Absolutely.
Well, Matt, you know what you have to do, and it's going to be even better this time. So,
oh shit! All right, I might have on the fly modify something. So something that I do want to say about this attachment, and looking at it, manifold maladies is pick one of the other two, which really you're going to be jiggling between extra, on your go turn, you're going to want to aim for extra AP. On your worried about clapback or you got to hold objectives, you're probably going to go for -1 to hit. Final ingredient is the secret actual detachment rule for this, because that, I think, you build around getting final ingredient to go off with the biologist putrefier, and you care more about that than manifold maladies, in my opinion. Getting just your entire army getting a second, the second right choice out of that is crazy, and you're really going to punish the shit out of someone that doesn't respect final ingredient threat on, like, a commissar or something that they've got hanging out somewhere, like a very squishy character. This detachment plays really well into the combat patrol, and it plays really well into a lot of the boxes that are floating around. The reason why I can't give this one like a super high rating is because very quickly you're gonna realize that in order to make this detachment like go off, you're gonna need a shitload of characters, and a lot of the characters are hidden behind single blister sprues, which are the most inefficient ways to get Warhammer miniatures, in my opinion. So unless you're very comfortable kit bashing the Tallyband over and over again into whatever you need them to be, you're gonna quickly realize, like, oh, I saved so much money with the combat patrol. I'm spending so much money on a Foul Blight spawn and 2 Malignant Plague casters, and they're like 3 character bundle, and then another Biologist Putrefier, and then another Biologist Putrefier, because you really want at least 2 of those guys because of how good they are. That feels pretty bad. Like one of the first points where I was like, how much does a 3D printer cost, was when I had to buy I think like it was like a blister of a character. I can't remember exactly what one it was, but I was like, are you doing this to me right now? You want me to pay $30-something? And now they're like $40. So I think this one is going to sticker shock some people if they build for it initially. This is a very nice reward if you have a massive collection of Death Guard, which I do.
So what's
but
your
anyway,
rating?
long story short, 7.
Yeah! Look at that. We have a double 777.
Oh my God! Look at that. We bingo to 7 out of here.
We bingo to
boys.
7. Let's go. So your meta score is going to be 7, right, Matt?
It damn near might.
So for my meta score, I'm giving this one a 5. It's kind of middle of the road. I think somebody's just going to take fixed assassination against you and ruin your day. I truly think that like final ingredient, your whole game plan is to get final ingredient to pop off as soon as possible, and then like that's kind of it. Which is good, but you have to make it happen first for your army to like actually unlock and start doing anything. And I think that that's going to be a problem because people will just shut that down as soon as they possibly can when they learn that. Stacking plagues, like having the ability to stack plagues, is kind of cute, but I don't ultimately think it's incredibly useful unless it's on a wide scale, like final ingredient. What do you think, Ryan?
I gave it a 7.
7.
Because my thought process on that is you're going to have a lot of very tough infantry out on the field if you're going to get, the characters you want out there. And some of their kit, like the Needle of Nurgle, it could make a very sticky unit to just bog down the middle of the field. And if you can get them out there, you can take like the middle objective. It's going to be really hard to dislodge that. Like in my last game that I played against Elliot's Tyranids, I had one Crusader squad with an Apothecary just holding the middle of the field, and he couldn't crack it. He never destroyed it. Even though he threw a bunch of lictors and all kinds of shit at it. The regeneration, D3 regeneration on like toughness 6 Space Marines, that's pretty good. And then you have all the other guys moving up the field coming at you. I don't know. I think it'd be competitive if it's run right.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I feel like this one lives and dies by the bulk cost of the Plague Marine model, and if they.
How much are they?
The rumor is that they're going to settle in on 100 for 5 and 200 for 10, which I think is going to keep this detachment from running rampant. If Death Guard ever struggle with Plague Marines and they want people to bring more Plague Marines and they bring this down to like 90 or 80, I don't think we'll ever see 85, but if we see 90, this shit, you're going to be seeing like 60 Plague Marines coming at you, man.
Yeah.
And this detachment's going to pop off. It's pretty wild. So I'm snorting some hopium here that we keep 100 ppm or 10 ppm Plague Marines, points per model Plague Marines, and hoping that we can get to 9.5 or 9. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a 7.
Yeah.
I guess the effectiveness kind of lives or dies based on the cost of the Plague Marine.
It absolutely does. Yeah.
I'm assuming you'll be able to get like a intolerable mass of them on the field.
And one thing that a lot of people I think are kind of skipping with the new evaluation in the beginning is you don't want to just max out just like across the board 10 Plague Marines, because after that unit's done shooting, you then hit them with affliction. So you want to bring a 5-man that's kind of like a pseudo Tau signaling unit that
so you have
hits
like a
affliction
follow-up,
long
basically.
range.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh.
And so you got like a cheap 5-man that unbuffed hits their stuff in there, and then you follow it up with like a Malignant Plague Caster / Biologist Putrefier 10-pack combo set up for ranged. That's like, they're getting sus 1 plasma guns that crit on a 5-up. homies, come on. Like, that's really fucking good. I don't know.
I just play Hellblasters, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I got smelly Hellblasters, so.
Smell blasters.
One cool thing in this detachment that I like is the stratagem Mobile Vector.
What it do?
It basically allows you to have a backup bodyguard unit. If a character's unit gets destroyed, he can jump into another unit that doesn't have a character.
Yeah.
And so like that Plague Surgeon with the Needle of Nurgle, who's like beefing up that unit. If you have like a backup squad of Plague Marines hanging back a little bit, when he starts getting low, they come up and he gets knocked out of his unit, assuming he doesn't get wiped. He can just jump into that other unit and it's like, oh, here we go again. A whole other thing to chew through that's regenerating.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that's going to happen like once every 5 games, maybe.
It's going to be uncommon, but it's going to be more likely to happen with the when you're rocking 2 characters, because one character's like the overkill will kill one character. It might not be enough to kill 2 characters, and so if if your favorite of the 2 survives, then all of a sudden Mobile Vector's online, and you don't have like a straggler running around.
And it's
with
just
like
harder to like
limbs.
mentally compensate for 2 characters with 4-up invulns instead of.
Exactly.
It gives you a way to like create a problem for your opponent and then just keep that problem alive even longer and really just get them bogged down.
Dilemmas, not decisions, baby. That's what you want to do to your opponent.
All right. So that puts us at a 6.7. Hey, that's 2 times 3 and then also a 7. You know?
Hell yeah.
Praise
He'll hang his hat on that.
And Matt finishing this one out with a solid 7.0. So let's go.
You know I had to do it to him.
Across the board.
I had to do it to him. All right.
What's chat up to? Let's see what they've been saying.
Praying for the 777 is what chat's doing right now.
Yeah, buddy.
They got it.
I'm sure we'll get there at some point.
Oh yeah, blue collar mentality. I remember that. Okay.
So in case anybody's wondering, this puts us currently at a full codex score of 6.9 as it sits right now.
Nice. Very nice.
So moving on to our 4th detachment, the Tallyband Summoners. Sex appeal. Look, man, demons are so back. Demons are so fucking back. And I think that Nurgle demons are some of the coolest and probably the best demons in the game. And a lot of the synergies that exist here, I wish there were more, which is why this isn't a 10, but I'm going to give it an 8. A lot of the synergies are pretty cool, and I've just always been a big fan of having demons running alongside your Marines, so that 8.
So I give it a 5. And it's possible that my opinion on this was affected by my disappointment in the things they've done with like demons attaching to these cult Marines.
Yeah, I agree.
The fact that there's one detachment where I can add them just reminds me that there's only one detachment where I can add them. Yeah. So it makes me sad. That's really the main reason I gave it a 5.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
I talk about that later. I get it.
All right, that's fair.
How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think this is going to be A, the least accessible, and B, the least appealing detachment. So I gave it a 3.
On sex appeal?
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit.
And my logic behind that is the combat patrol, one of it plays a little bit into it. I'll get more into that with accessibility. If you're a newer player or if you are into demons, you're probably going to be like, how do I play demons in 40k? And it's not going to be this detachment in this book. This is basically a way for primary Death Guard players to dabble in demons and not reverse, right? So you're going to be wanting to look at like Bellacore and some of the freebie stuff that we got going on, like Plague Legion, all that fun stuff. B, you might not even be playing 40k because the box for all this shit wants you to play Age of Sigmar, right? So it's not like these demons being some of your first purchases is going to feel not like a smooth, it's going to need like an employee or a player to explain it to you. It's not going to be obvious, right? Like if someone's like, I want to be playing Tallyband Summoners. And also, I love how if you say it fast enough, it sounds unfortunate. It's very fun. It's very fun. We in the poppy fields now, but anyway. So it's
you'll
one
get
of those
there,
things...
Ryan. I'll have to get you to explain it to me later.
All right. Let's see. Yeah. Long story short, this one has the most logical hoops to jump through for you to like land your feet here and say, I want to play this. I don't think this is the hot seat that you're going to get in and drive. I think this is the one where you're like, oh yeah, let me go ahead and do Tallyband Summoners and get around to it. So,
all right. On the lore front, I give it a 6. Again, like I like the demons running alongside Marines. I've always been like a big fan of like mixing and allying forces together. So I'm just kind of a sucker for that. I feel like a lot of the rules though aren't as fluffy as they could be. I feel like a lot of the synergies that I want to be there aren't really there. For the most part, you are still kind of just playing a little bit of demons alongside your little bit of Death Guard. So yeah, just a 6. Just not as cohesive as I think it could be. What do you think, Ryan?
I gave it an 8. You know, it's chaos. It's Nurgle covered in Nurgle gravy. You know, it's Chaos Marines with Chaos Demons. It's hard to get more chaos than that, which is why it being limited to a single detachment is so cringe. But yeah, I like the idea of Chaos Marines, especially the cold guys, running alongside of demons. So,
Matt,
cool. Yeah, I gave this one a 7 because it plays into some pretty cool stuff. Like the fact that Persistent Pests leans into Nurglings never being ever really gone, and how like crippling that they can be like in the lore, in the books and everything, to like a ship that has that has like a weakening Geller field and stuff like that. It's pretty great. Fleshy Advance is literally, it might as well just say Great Unclean One. I'm trying to think of another thing that applies to besides Rodriguez and the Great Unclean One, and I can't think of one off the top of my head. It's pretty good, and the fact that Tome of Bountiful Blessings is giving you an enhancement that reintegrates the army rule for demons back to them, that you get like a mini version of their army rule back to them as running around as allies, that's fucking cool, man. So I had to give this one a 7. But yeah, I agree with both of y'all's points actually, which is why I'm pouring into a 7 there.
Right there in the middle.
Yeah, I like Persistent Pests. It did give me flashbacks to playing Bolt Gun and having to deal with all those fucking Nurglings. But
true.
Yeah. Also, congrats on actually getting Nurglings in the Codex. There was like Auspex Tactics was unsure if that would happen, and I wasn't.
It was
sure
touch and go there for a minute, man.
Yeah. It would have been a sad day.
Predators, it would have been a very sad day. I'm glad we got Predators. Predators are like a 5 out of 10 as far as like a unit that I'd be excited about, but we still got them, which is all I care about.
Yeah, I'm real happy for you for getting Predators.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to rub it in.
Real happy for you.
You can just take the turret off of your Predator and put men in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
moving on to accessibility.
Oof. So for accessibility, I have a feeling we're all going to be somewhat aligned on this. I give it a 3. What the fuck are you doing with demons, GW? Like, you're not gonna want to buy 1,000 points of demons just to run for your Death Guard. And I truly think that that's the idea. I think they want to try and force you to start a demons army if you want to run this detachment. So yeah, it sucks what they're doing with demons. That's it. How do you feel, Ryan?
Yeah, I originally gave this a 6 on accessibility, but actually I'd probably give it lower, give it a 4. Now that I'm thinking about it a little clearer, because like you buy the demons for this is like the one detachment you can use it for. It's kind of like if you're not playing AOS or playing a demon army, it's a waste. Or not a waste, but it's not efficient. And you have like a lot of different rules to keep track of for a new player that are kind of different styles of units. It might be a lot to take in. But yeah, what are they doing with demons?
Nobody knows.
Mm.
Matt, how you feeling?
Straight up 2, man. I think
Yeah.
this detachment is very, like, approachability, especially. A new player is going to be like, why the hell am I buying the other game to put miniatures in my army that is like evil, gross Space Marines? Why am I doing this? Why would I want to do this?
My counterpoint to that would be that, like, the way that it was before, totally do that, because you could run them in every detachment in the book.
Yeah.
The fact that it's limited to one detachment is the part that sucks. You're not gonna buy a bunch of demons from a different game for one single detachment.
Yeah. And it's like, for this detachment, especially for pretty much all the demon attachments, it's not that you could just like buy one unit of plague bearers. You need to buy a sizable amount of demons. So
you need like 600 or 700 points of your army to be demons.
Yeah.
So that you can do the pairing thing. So they have the presence to team off with each other to get the synergy. That was the nice thing about being able to do it in any detachment, is like, you could be like, you know what? Some demons would be cool. Like, what if there was like a little pack of demons I could summon, and I could just buy 10 plague bearers and have them in my army, and it's flavorful.
Yeah.
But that's gone now.
Yeah. So I think this is a very difficult detachment to approach unless you already are swimming in a lot of these models and you're already enfranchised into Nurgle in general across multiple games. So approachability on this one is hella low, basically.
Yeah. Moving on to meta, I give it a 6. I think it's gonna be fine. I think that it probably lives and dies by the strength of the data sheets a little bit too much. The buffs that exist in the detachment are like kind of minimal. So yeah, I think it's gonna be fine. I think it's gonna be good, but not great. How about you, Ryan?
I gave it a big old 7 for Praise Nurgle. Yeah, it's got a lot of different data sheets in it that you have to juggle. But there is some spice in there, especially with like things like Beckoning Blight.
There's some spice.
You can do some shenanigans with Deep Strike, where you Deep Strike like a unit of Terminators at 9 inches, then you Deep Strike Demons at 6 inches, and then you've got like a bunch of stuff coming in their backfield. You have a much bigger bubble than they're expecting. The Persistent Pests, any army that has like a regenerate mechanic to it, or any detachment that has a regenerate mechanic, has like some inherent ability to like adapt to the changing battlefield situation, retake backfield objectives, threaten other objectives late game.
Nurglings can't do that. They have no OC.
Oh well, yeah, but I mean, you can use them in other ways. You can gum up.
They
the
can push
with
buttons
them.
they can't push buttons.
Yeah. Behind enemy lines,
you can gum up the enemy with them, and let another unit do that kind of stuff.
For
but
sure.
It's a useful thing to have. So they got some. There's some
tricks.
There.
Yeah.
I think this. I can't. Basically, my read on this detachment is that it's pretty pillow-fisted compared to what you want to do, but it gives you enough tools to make like super jail, a super jail detachment, because you have Nurglings and Poxwalkers down there, and you put Guos, 1 or 2 Guos on your natural expansion and like the center objective and stuff like that. So once they get through the jail, they then got to chew through a friggin' Guo, and then you're regenerating demons. You're doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
What is a super jail detachment?
Do you know what a jail detachment is?
No.
So think like an army basically putting a wall of meat in front of you so you can't leave your deployment zone. You're stuck in jail.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you've got to chew through the wall of Nurglings and Poxwalkers and regenerating plague bearers before you can hit my Guo, which is probably not going to die from the first clap on them, right? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of play style is interesting. I think that there's more effective ways to do it, which is Flyblown Host. But this is like the backup jail detachment. it might have I think this is like a 2.5 trick pony, basically. Like, I think it's going to do some work, and I think it's going to maybe surprise a GT or two if people don't know how to not GT, excuse me, RTT. If people don't know how to handle jails, but I think if people know how to handle jails, or if you go up against jump packs that have, or
Don't
or
give a
demons,
shit about
honestly.
your jail.
Yeah, exactly. Like, demons loves playing into this. Like, a demon opponent will love this because you're gonna have a very hard time jailing them down. So yeah, I'm giving this one a 5.
Okay. Cool. So that sticks us at a pretty low 5.3. This is just an average detachment here.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 2 more to go. Next one is Shamble Rot Vectorium. Baby, this is your Poxwalker detachment. This is your zombie horde detachment. This detachment speaks my fucking language. It's a zombie invasion, and that's fucking rad. It's a 9 on sex appeal, baby.
Oh yeah.
What's more blue collar than a bunch of zombies, right? Or something like that. Yeah, this is a big 10 for me.
Yeah,
I'm
baby.
a sucker. I'm a sucker for a zombie horde. Back when I started building in like 3rd or 4th edition, a zombie horde Death Guard army. Then I ran out of time and money because I was in school. But I still have like the zombies floating around my bits boxes. I find them every once in a while. So yeah, there's a non-zero chance that I make mistakes and I buy a bunch of zombies and I build one of these because it's just fucking fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. This is the only detachment that people are talking about at length outside of Death Guard forums. So I'm putting this one out of 10. Like, it is probably the
You know what? Fuck it. 10.
Yeah,
we ball,
and
baby.
you know what?
Oh,
3
30.
10s is that's 30, which is 3
Hey, let's go.
times 10.
Which is the K of the Horus Heresy as well, which Death Guard partook in.
That's true.
That's true.
You're not wrong. I don't know what that means, but you're not wrong.
Speed Wonder says Ryan once again loves large groups of men ground pounding their way across the battlefield.
I think he's got you dialed in.
You're not wrong. Like, that's not an insult. It's true. I like that. Maybe I just need to start a guard army, I guess.
Shit. I think you do.
All right, lore. No notes. Nailed it.
Yeah.
10.
10. Matt?
Dude. All right, fine. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, it's just like this is like part of like a core human desire is like a horde of zombies either leading one or being faced down by one. Like it's. I wish this shit was like this for Tyranids, man. The Tyranids Endless Hordes detachment needs to be the Endless Unending Swarms detachment needs to just like copy paste this and replace the keywords with what matters, because this is so much better done than the Unending Swarms for Tyranids.
That's like the perspective I'm approaching it from, is that like I would love to like play against this.
Yeah.
I want to fight the zombie horde.
Oh yeah.
I would have fun running this, and I wouldn't even care if I won the battle. I just want to see the fucking horde just going up against, Space Marines or whatever.
The fucking horde is Slaanesh.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
the stinking horde going up against anybody. It'd just be fun to watch. Like, can they stop the fucking tide?
Yeah.
This is you have less of an opponent and more of a category of like game that you're playing. Like, you're basically playing a scenario more than an opponent with this detachment. Like, it's a fucking army full of zombies, especially if they're leaning into the max 150, dude. Yeah.
What you gotta do if you're playing this army, you don't max out your Poxwalkers. What are you fucking doing?
What's the point?
Honestly, you're basically like a GM for a scenario.
Yeah,
more than you are.
It's basically like, hey, I know you came to an RTT, but let's play my side scenario.
Let's play D&D.
Yeah.
Approachability. 3. Man, you gotta paint 150 Poxwalkers? Fuck that. This detachment doesn't kill anything. This detachment just survives and marches up the board. So I think that that's going to make it a little bit difficult to approach for new players. And again, you have to paint 150 Poxwalkers, which is not fun. So yeah, that's going to be a big 3 from me, dog.
Yeah, I give it an approachability of 4. It's like, because you got to get so many models, and third party's probably the way to go, which is the way I'm going to go with this if I do it. Getting that many Poxwalkers from GW, I can't imagine. And then painting them, like, this is definitely something where you like Zenithal and dip. Probably.
Oh my god.
There's no actual paint brushing happening for this probably.
You got a black rattle can, a white rattle can, contrast paint, and some the basing texture, and you're like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, like some contrast or something, or one of those like was it Army Painter that sells like the bucket, the dip bucket?
Yeah. Army Painter just has the dip buckets. Yeah,
yeah, just get the dip bucket.
That'd be good. Yeah.
And like in a way, it is an easy army to run, but it's like you're almost like not even playing 40k. If you're doing this army,
you're a DM.
Yeah, like we said, you're a DM, so you're not like getting the full experience.
Yeah. Your real enemy is
so,
like you gotta. Yeah, the clock is your enemy if you're bringing this to an event, more so than your enemy.
That's true. Yeah, you're just gonna clock out at some point.
The zombies have shut down. The necromancer behind them all died.
Just finished Morty now working on last squad of Poxwalkers. How many? How many do you have, Kerfuffles?
Yeah.
Let us know. Man.
I have to admit, yeah. All right, so I got 3, actually 4 ratings for this one. And it depends
on how
on
this works.
I know, but I can't decide. Okay, if you want to put 150 of literally Poxwalkers on the table, like literally just the Poxwalker kit model, 0. It is a fucking expensive kit. You get 10 of them in a box. It comes with 1/2 of a fucking Plague Marine on the sprue, which doesn't make any fucking sense. And like literally every single 24 hours, there's a post on the Death Guard subreddit.
I see those posts constantly. In the top comment is always reset the clock.
Yeah, that's literally all it is.
Wait.
Like,
what do you mean you get half a Plague Marine on a Pox?
Because these originally came out in an old like combo box.
It was the Dark Imperium combo box.
And so the Poxwalker sprue literally just has like a torso piece and like an arm or something of a single Plague Marine.
And check this out. That's the only sprue they brought back. There's another sprue. I think there's another 2 sprues that has Poxwalkers on it. Those sculpts are not for sale anymore. Those Poxwalkers are like limited edition Poxwalkers, basically. You cannot access those fucking Poxwalkers anymore. So you're going to see the same 10 sons of bitches copy pasted over and over and over and over again. So 0 on accessibility. That sucks to have to paint 10 of the same sculpt 150 times. That is awful. If you allow people to tap into cultists, which are hitting the market for a second here, and the old Death Guard Combat Patrol, which has 30 Poxwalkers in it, then it is like a 1 or a 2 on accessibility because you have access to bulk stuff like that, right? Like you can do a little bit of that. If you go to third party, accessibility becomes a strong 2, maybe a soft 3, because you can look at War Games Atlantic, which is like a buck a zombie, basically. I think Ryan and I were talking about this literally today. Like, if you buy in bulk, you are at a buck a zombie. Games Workshop themselves,
$170 before tax, approximately.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Games Workshop themselves for Age of Sigmar, I can't remember if it's the Soulblight Gravelords or the Flesh Eater Cults. They have a 20-man box of zombies that are basically Poxwalkers, and you just put some sci-fi bits on them replace
Gravelords.
Yeah, SBGLs. You are literally doubling your value per zombie, right?
So let's split the difference out of 2 here.
Well, okay, so then there's one more. If you are 3D printing, this is a 5 out of 10. However, it's a 3D printer, which is like the minority of Warhammer people are.
3D printing automatically makes us not very accessible, in my opinion.
Exactly. Put it at a 1.5 if we can do that.
It's a 2.
All right, fine.
You gotta pick one. Is it a 1 or a 2?
I'm mad about it. 1.
1? All right, we're pissed. Meta. We'll see if this is a hot take. I think this shit's really good. I think that this if played correctly, the board presence that you have playing this attachment is crazy. So I think that this is going to be really good. It's going to be really hard to shift, and it gives you like a lot of really good jail tools, which currently jail detachments have been really strong. That very well could change in the future, but that's kind of where we're at now. So I'm hitting it with a good 8.
I'm giving it a 7 for Praise Nurgle.
Okay, understandable.
I think it's also very competitive. Poxwalker's having Infiltrate, and then the Feel No Pain. That's as I've learned, that's called jailing people, and like board presence is everything. From what I've seen, armies that can get the like middle no man's land and like lock it down in some fashion, they're crushing games. From the games I've watched. And then you have things like the Lord of the Walking Pox plus the Noxious Blightbringer. Stick him in a squad of one of your first squads of Poxwalkers, and then you can like bring him in as if it's turn 3 on turn 1, unless I read something wrong. That's
correct.
Pretty huge. 'Cause all of a sudden, there's this huge pack of just glue potentially in someone's backfield if they're not careful. Yeah, I think they could. And then you have like Hidden Amongst the Dead. You can like deep strike one of the units you get for free, one of the 10 packs. Your board presence is going to be indomitable unless the person brings like a lot of blast, of
blast
flammers.
Weapons will probably eat this.
Yeah,
Probably.
But I mean they have a Feel No Pain.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, if you can get your dice to spike, this is gonna just suck to play into. So I'm giving this one an 8. Excuse me, it's probably going to be like a pretty major problem. One of the things that a lot of people aren't realizing is that like everyone knows that Typhus can join these guys, and you can also attach the Noxious Blightbringer to the Typhus detachment. So Typhus gets the Noxious Blightbringer detachment, which makes him run faster, which makes him like it's kind of crazy. Like that's like your Omega zombie brick, right? Like that's the one that actually fucking matters.
So you could stick a 20 pack with Typhus and a Noxious Blightbringer in their backfield if they leave a big enough pocket.
Yeah, basically,
That's gross.
The problem if they see that if they see that and you have that in reserves, you're probably not getting that guy in the backfield.
Yeah.
However, I think that is like your alpha zombie pack basically.
Yeah.
And then the Malignant Plaguecaster and the Noxious Blightbringers are able to attach to them. I think you want to bring 1 or 2 Malignant Plaguecasters in this. I don't think a second, definitely not a third, but I don't think a second Noxious Blightbringer is worth it. However, this detachment is just doing literally disgusting shit all over the place, and it's going to be a very strong one.
Yeah.
It also lives and dies by Poxwalker total, because that number is going to fluctuate so hard by points per million, points per model.
Different PPM.
A little bit.
Yeah. It's basically just a big wall of meat with another big wall of meat as backup.
Hell yeah, dude.
7.6. That's pretty strong, I think.
Can I change a number to make this 7.7?
I doubt it.
I'm gonna bump my 7 to 8 because I didn't know you could put Typhus with the Noxious.
Oh, it's good, dude. Yeah.
You're gonna bump yours up to an 8. All right, we'll keep Matt
or,
at a 1.
Or leave it.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
There we go.
7.7. 7.7.
Oh my god. That unlocks something deep in my brain, dude. That feels so good. That feels so
We're hitting all the funny numbers.
Yeah, dude.
All right. We got about 15 minutes to get through Deathlord's Chosen, and then we'll go through our totals.
Let's rip.
Deathlord's Chosen. This is going to be your Terminator detachment. I love Terminators, but I think some of the rules don't seem to really jive with that super well, and they're kind of boring if I'm being honest. So it's 7. I think it's a little bit above average just because I'm Terminator biased. Ryan?
I gave it a 5. I guess because Terminator's a 2 white collar. They're
veterans, and Ryan hates veterans.
It is.
Oh no!
It is infantry, but
that's not true, by the way. Or maybe it is. I can't speak for him.
I hate what? What'd you say?
Nothing.
No, I don't hate veterans. Both my grandfathers are veterans. You idiot. Rude. I forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, I give it a 5. I don't know. It's like it seems like a very elite detachment. And apparently I like having a bunch of dudes pounding up the field. So
True.
This is this is my personal favorite detachment. This is like a 9, dude. I love this
Okay.
thing. I love this.
We know you love your
so much.
Terminators.
I
fucking
figured you
love
would
my
like
Terminator.
this.
Dude, I saw this and I was like, this is my new pet for the edition. Like
They
I'm
did
going
this
to
for
try
me.
and make this. Kinda, yeah, dude. It's
For
fucking
me.
raw. It's great.
Lore. Stinky Custodies are pretty cool, but the rules are like pretty generalist, so
I give it an 8 because it is elite heavy infantry. They're not like mainline infantry, but they're still like, that's Mortarion like the dudes trudging through the mud.
True.
These guys just trudge a little slower, or I
Yeah.
guess they're the same speed as Plague Marines now, aren't they?
Yeah. 5.
Yeah, they used to be like speed 4, right?
Unlucky. They should be 3.
Yeah, it was not good for the previous iterations. I give this one a 7. It's very obvious that they designed the rules and worked backwards, in my opinion, which kind of takes a little bit of a lore hit there. But there are some stuff in here where like you can feel the Terminator power armor. Like Sickening Impact is like, oh yeah. When you read what Cataphracti armor is, and when you read that a Space Marine is launching themselves that fast into someone on a charge, of course it's going to deal some fucking mortal wounds, right? So stuff like Sickening Impact. I love like generic stuff like Mortarion's Teachings, which just like calls back to really good stuff in the book. It feels good. So for me, for lore, I'm giving this a 7. But I'm obviously biased because it's probably my favorite detachment.
Oh, the fun Sickening Impact thing that I told Matt the other day that I learned.
That's the reason why I'm never going to do that is because A, they obviously don't want it to work like that, and B, like how you have to be throwing a Poxwalker at Mach fuck in order to do something to do a mortal wound to a Land Raider.
So if you're not familiar, Sickening Impact is you after a charge with a Terminator unit, you roll a die for every model in that unit, and on the 2-up, the target of the charge takes a mortal wound. Well, if you put Typhus in a squad of Poxwalkers, they gain the Terminator keyword, so you're basically just guaranteed 6 mortal wounds.
Hey, roll 21 dice, and for every 6, excuse me, yeah, for every 2-up, you get a mortal wound. I've never seen someone roll that low. Maybe Ryan would, but I don't even doubt you.
Elliot had a curse last game. He was
very
rolling pretty
cursed.
shit.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure only Drukari aircraft are the things that can go Mach fuck.
True.
That's the only thing capable of such speeds.
That's very good.
All right, Matt, what's your lore take on this?
Oh, 7.
7. Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Prisoner.
All right. Approachability. 8. I think it's elite, so you don't have a ton of models. I think the Terminators are relatively easy to paint from a hobby perspective, and the rules are pretty forgiving given how tough like Terminators are. So yeah, 8.
I give it a 6. It's a small amount of units, easy to paint, and all that. Tough units, so you can make some mistakes. But if you're playing like a detachment that's like focused on this, it's a lot of like elite infantry. You may not have the numbers, and you can get easily outmaneuvered or bogged down if you're not, if you don't know how to like handle those kind of situations. So it's not as straightforward maybe as some of the other detachments.
Awesome. I am definitely giving this one an 8 because A, the combat patrol slots into it perfectly. You literally want every one of those units in the combat patrol. The reason why you want Plague Marines in this is because you want to be throwing that afflicted out at range for the shooting that's coming from a bunch of different parts of your army. You get Terminators in it. You get a Rhino, which is going to allow you to do that affliction thing very well. And then you have a free empty box with which to hold objectives or be a huge pain in the ass, giving affliction elsewhere with its aura. It supports the Terminator bombs that you want to be building towards very well. And on approachability, they brought back if they haven't already, they're about to announce that they're going to bring back the Felthius, the Tainted cohort box, which is the Lord of Contagion sculpt that's actually available. There's another one that sprue locked out of things, which is one of the unfortunate consequences of Dark Imperium. Long story short, there's another box called Felthius's Tainted Cohort. It has a Lord of Contagion with a different sculpt and 3 Blightlord Terminators. The unit size is from 4 Blightlord Terminators is now down to 3 to 10. So what that does is it makes it very accessible to get into Blightlord Terminators. You can buy the 5-pack or you can dabble a little bit. And B, it gives experienced players a 3-man unit of Terminators to drop down and do. It's basically like the perfect secondary unit, right? This is more of a meta thing, and it plays best into this attachment. But it is a very efficient piece that is very easy to get into, and this detachment wants you to A, have that piece, and B, have that character to put into the 2 boxes of Blightlord Terminators that you also bought because this thing's so good. So I'm giving this an 8. I already said it, yeah.
So kind of segueing off that a little bit, I'm going to give it a 5 in meta because I think that you probably don't want to be spending that many points on a unit that's just going to be pushing buttons for the most part. And I think that otherwise the detachment is just like a little bit too slow and expensive. This kind of lives and dies on like how expensive Terminators are, which they're strong data sheets, but ultimately I think that because they're so elite and still very slow, it is going to just be easy to play around them. So 5.
I give it a 7. I think, you make a lot of good points, but like a player who knows what they're doing with a very elite army like that and does their deep strikes right can do some nasty things. Also, like things like a Mortarion's teachings allow you to like get a little extra speed out of the Terminators that your opponent might not expect. And then if you pick the right, I think A, the points cost of the Terminators is going to make or break it. And B, finding the right balance of like having your block of elite infantry and then the right auxiliary units to back them up is going to be the secret sauce. But if someone gets that mix right, it's going to be pretty nasty to deal with.
Alrighty.
Oh yeah,
Matt.
I think this detachment specifically is going to play like a slightly skewed Chaos Custodes, essentially. Like this is basically Chaos Custodes if you bring in the parts. And if you bring three packs of Death Shroud Terminators and you don't overcommit to the blob of the 6-pack, which are like an obscene amount of points. I think the 6-pack and then the Lord of Contagion leading them costs about the same as Mortarion. So as long as you're not bringing 3 Mortarions by doubling up those packs and you're being strategic about it, having 3 units that can deep strike 6 inches away from strategic positions is going to be pretty wild, and it's going to shore up that movement issue. But I think they're honestly going to play like slightly slower custodians, and so at that point, people kind of know how to tech on you, and people kind of know what direction to go with you, and like all those paths and things are figured out. So I think it's going to be okay. I don't think it's going to be great. There are other better detachments, so this one gets a 7 for me.
7. All right. Let me just do something real quick. No, this isn't gonna work. Damn. So let's go ahead and take a look at our totals here. I was trying to go through and see if I could make that an even 7.0, but I couldn't. So Codex Death Guard gets a solid 6.8. That's like a little just above average. I think that this one really kind of got dragged down by us being salty about the Demons Detachment.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
But yeah, I think that this is like a solidly like above average codex as far as things go. You guys feel like 6.8 is like a kind of a fair score out of 10?
My soul is rounding this up to like 10, but that's because I'm a Death Guard player.
I would give it a solid 7.
I would round it up to 7. I'm just salty about the demons.
I'll tame some of my salt to give it a 7.
they did with this book what I would hope as a Death Guard's my first Warhammer army for real, honestly. Like they're the first units that I ever like painted a big one for, or my first units that I got to 1,000 points. My games, all this stuff I've always seen a lot of stuff through a Death Guard lens first and foremost. This book felt like all the ideas I had were in the writing room with the team when they were writing this book. It's good. Some of it might be a little too good. It doesn't feel unfun. It doesn't feel unfair in either direction. I'm obviously a little bit biased. I think it's going to need some tuning, but this is like this codex is an A+, and they've got me as a player for a very long time because of this book. I'm beyond stoked and happy about this.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot of flavor in there. And a lot of variability in like how you can play, which I think is nice.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do my best to play each of these detachments as fast as possible on slams. Like every time Death Guard's coming up, I'm gonna be trying a new flavor. And buddy, we're gonna be tasting the rainbow together. Let me tell you.
Hell yeah.
I don't know if I want to taste that particular rainbow.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
well,
I'll try anything once.
My man.
Yeah, that's our Codex Death Guard review of all of the detachments. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to move on over to the next stream, we're going to be talking about World Eaters. I got to do a quick little bit of changeover. We're going to kick Matt out. We're going to get Sean in here. And we're all going to talk about the brand new World Eaters Codex. So, yeah, stay tuned for that. And have a good night, everyone.
Toodles, y'all.